Okay,
now.
I did it. Now I'm recording.
Okay. Doctor
Strange.
Is
Like
if
a
old
hot
man
got
magic
and
also
therapy.
hell yeah. Physical therapy specifically.
And emotional therapy. They're like combined. He goes through an emotional journey, Jackson. You've seen the film. You should know this.
It's true, but he doesn't get fucking emotional therapy. He gets fucking magic lessons. He gets physical therapy for his fingies. He gets physical therapy for his fingies, okay,
but
Adeline?
It also helps his emotion. It stops him from being such an asshole.
I think that Doctor Strange is the most fingy-centric movie of the 21st century. Do you think that's true?
It's very fingy. It's not crunchy, it's fingy.
It's a very fingy movie.
It's the only fingy movie, I would argue.
I'm so glad we decided to stream today.
What's the movie with the monkey paw?
Yeah, are there any...
That's very fingy. That's fingy and crunchy. Any
Monkey
movie
paw.
with a monkey paw in it? Are monkey paws not okay anymore?
Are you talking about Henry Selick's Monkey Paw?
Is that a movie? I feel like you're making fun of me, but I don't know.
Yes, it's the one with...
Is it the one with the monkey paw?
The one with Brendan Fraser? Is that the one you're thinking of?
I'm just thinking of the concept of the monkey paw is very crunchy and very fingy at the same time. How many times can I make this hand motion before you understand what I'm saying?
Crunchy and fingy.
Crunchy and fingy.
Okay.
On today's episode, is it crunchy or is it fingy? We will be discussing Bill and Ted. It's not very crunchy and not very fingy.
Oh, Adeline!
What?
Wait, I'm doing the intro.
Okay.
Oh, what if it was our science project?
Oh, we gotta
Adeline.
do it, or you're gonna get sent to military school on Mars. Again!
Oh, wait, we should go to Mars, though, because it's a science project, and we'll learn about it.
And the science project is about the planets.
This is our pitch for Bill and Ted 2.
That would be a pretty spicy adventure.
They just get in the phone booth and go to Mars and look around. They're like, huh.
Bill and Ted's spicy adventure.
That sure is. Yeah. Anyway, hi, my name is Jackson McMurray.
Mars is pretty spicy, I have to assume. My name is Adeline McMurray, and I think that Mars is probably pretty spicy.
Alright. Good stuff.
This is No Nerds 11. What flavor do you think all the planets are? It's got a little heart on it. I feel like Pluto just tastes like... Looks like it tastes like a potato, you know? Because it's got like all like the different like colors of gray on it. Like it's not very... Pluto doesn't look very tasty, is all I'm saying.
Okay. I don't know if we can sustain this.
Get in the fucking play zone, Jackson. And just yes and me for once.
Mercury tastes like popcorn.
Yeah, I see it. I get it.
I don't know how to explain this, but Mercury and popcorn, same energy.
Same energy. Thursday, September, same dude.
That's my viral tweet.
Neptune's
Monday,
just already a big blueberry.
If the planets were days of the week, what would they be?
I think Pluto would be fucking Saturday. Because, you know.
I think Pluto's got big Saturday energy.
Which of the planets do you think has the biggest dick? Like, probably Mars, right? Probably, I think Mars
well, honestly, I think Neptune has the biggest dick energy of the planets.
Yeah, uh-huh. I get
because
it.
it's sort of, there's not really anything especially interesting about it besides that it's a really nice color and there's a certain amount of confidence in that. You know?
Like that's just, it doesn't.
It's like, it doesn't have to have a thing like all the other planets do.
Exactly.
You know?
You're already interested. You don't need an entry point. You're already on board. Anyway.
I feel like all the other planets have like a gimmick.
Who has
and
bigger
Neptune's
dick
like,
energy, Bill or Ted?
Who has bigger dick energy, Wednesday or Friday?
No, Bill or Ted. Get on board.
This is... If... Okay.
I'm trying to get on topic, and you're just not.
I just can't stop comparing arbitrary things to days of the week.
I said to get into play zone, and now you will not. You're like stuck in like the McDonald's like plastic slides. You're like stuck in one, and you can't get out.
I'm too excited to roast bullshit that people on Twitter say.
Yeah.
I gotta get into movie criticism zone.
I think that's a Venn diagram, actually.
Okay, this week. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Yes.
We've decided to cover this today because it's on all of our minds, because Bill and Ted 3 is coming out next week. Although we haven't decided, we talked about covering Bill and Ted 3 Day 1 next week, and just having 2 Bill and Teds in a row and pushing the next Randy's Choice to the week after that.
Yeah.
We'll make a decision and tell you later. But either this week or next week, we're going to be talking Bill and Ted 3. And today, we're talking Bill and Ted 1, and we will not be discussing Bill and Ted 2.
Yeah.
Because we did not plan ahead, and we didn't make time for it. Sorry.
I know there are a lot of people that really like the second one, but like we grew up watching the first one and not the second one. So like I know the death is
I still haven't seen the second one.
And it's very funny, and there are like robots. That's all I know about Bill and Ted 2.
Yeah, there's like robot Bill and Ted.
Yeah.
I've seen bits and pieces of it. I have not seen the whole thing though.
Yeah.
Although we did talk about it quite a lot in my intro to world cinema class, because the way that they portray death as like being that pale guy who likes to play games is like straight out of The Seventh Seal, which is an old German movie. Mm-hmm. So for some reason that meant that it came up in my intro to world cinema class like 8 times over.
Like all the time.
So yeah, so that's most of my knowledge of Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey comes from my intro to world cinema class at my collegiate level.
I mean,
film studies.
It's probably the best opinion to get about it, maybe.
Yeah.
An educational view.
So, first things first, we would not exist if it were not for this movie. Our parents' first date was Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Yeah.
Did you not see where I was going with that? Why do you look so concerned?
I didn't know what I thought you were going to say we were like conceived of Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, and I was going to be like, I don't think we've ever been told that story, Jackson. But yeah, so it's like, what if their first date had been Back to the Future, but then they don't go, and then we get a rate, and then it's like, whoa, and then we have to go back to the future. I'm so tired.
Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
It's a really
was the movie that ensured that the two of us would exist. So that's why we have a special connection to this. And why we are more excited about Bill and Ted 3 than probably anybody else around.
In the immediate vicinity.
Yeah. The thing about Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure is that it holds up way better than almost any comedy from before, I don't know, the year 2000.
I mean, yeah, really.
Holds up better than most comedies ever. I mean, there is one particular moment that sucks, but it's a very, very small moment.
Yeah, but it's one of those things that's like, basically they drop the F slur just like really quickly, but like it seems problematic, but like in a realistic teen boy way, if that makes any sense. Not to justify it in any way, but you know what I mean?
Right. Personally, I mean, not to talk about this like 2 seconds into the episode.
Yeah, but just get it out of the way, you know.
Just get it out of the way. There's this moment where they hug, and then they hug in a moment of relief, and then they're like, "Oh, ew," and then they call each other the F slur.
Yeah.
And you're like, that is, first of all, like, not even funny, but second of all, like, feels totally contradictory to, like, the way this movie sets up Bill and Ted as characters.
Yeah.
Because, like, they're so doe-eyed and kind and innocent throughout this entire movie.
Yeah, they're so, like...
totally, like...
They're so, like, ahead of their time with, like, kindness and, like, be excellent to each other, and then we're just gonna drop a slur in the middle of it for no reason. Like, it's totally just, like, 80s politic. Has nothing to do with anything. But that's just the one. Yeah. What about in Back to the Future, where the mom, like, almost gets raped? That's, like, a plot point.
I don't think that doesn't hold up.
It's
part of the movie. What do you mean?
It's uncomfy. I'll tell you that.
It's uncomfy. It's meant to be uncomfy.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's sort of the thing. I mean, we talked about this a lot in our Austin Powers episode. Which is that, like, so many old comedies are, like, borderline unwatchable now.
Yeah.
Where you're just like, oh, man, I thought this was really funny at some point, but this is a little rougher than I remembered.
Anymore. It's not anymore.
And definitely the older a movie is, the more likely it is to be unwatchable. There's definitely a gradient. Whereas, like, if you're watching something from, like, the early 2000s, you, like, flip a coin, right? It's like, maybe this holds up pretty good, maybe it doesn't. If you're watching a comedy from before 1990, then it's like, basically you can just assume it doesn't hold up. Yeah. But that's the thing about Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, is that it, like, except for that literally, like, 1 second in it, the whole thing just feels totally... I mean, I hate to say the word wholesome because it's one of those weird internet words that I get annoyed with that people use to describe everything.
Yeah,
but,
including, like, our podcast
it
a lot of
the time. It's wholesome. Yeah, but it's like, it's genuinely, there's something so uncynical about it.
Oh, yeah.
Because these two kids are just fun. And, like, the movie isn't making fun of them. The movie really loves them.
That's what I think I love so much about this movie, and I think that's why it's, like, stayed around as a part of, like, the zeitgeist so much, is because it's so, quote-unquote, wholesome. Like, it doesn't... I feel like a lot of teen movies, like, movies that, like, have teens as the protagonists or, like, in high school... They're always being written by adults, so it's always this weird, like, negative view of high school, which is totally fair. But that just seems like, I don't know, I get tired of it. It's like, oh, they're the jocks and they're the bullies, and school's so hard and teachers don't get it. And, like, this movie, I feel like this movie kind of really touches on some, like, real problems in high school without being, like, dark and gloomy about it. Like, Bill and Ted are, like, two genuine dudes who are, like, they're not, it's not like they're not trying. They are trying to, like, be good at school. Like, they're going to the library. They're getting all the books. They're in class every day. And they just don't fucking get it because it's just not how they learn. And it's, like, it's kind of like a commentary on, like, teaching styles. It's, like, how you have to be, like, like, a part of it and, like, learning something and, like, talking to people is how they, like, get the information in their heads versus just, like, sitting in a classroom all day and learning it. And it's, like, you feel for them because they're not hippies, they're not jocks, they're not idiots, they're just, like, two kids who are, like, really trying to, like, be good at something.
Yeah, and I love, like, that scene where the teacher, like, pulls them aside and is like, hey, if you guys can't get it together for this assignment, I'm gonna have to fail you for this class. And they're just like, they're not like, oh, fuck you, Mr. Richardson, I don't even care about school, meh. I just want to smoke weed all day. They're like very quiet. They're just like, okay. Like, yeah, no, I get it. Like, we really fucked up this quarter and we gotta get it together. And, like, if anything, there's not really... It doesn't make the teacher out to be a bad guy. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Is that the teacher doesn't seem like an asshole for failing them.
Yeah.
It seems like he's just kind of doing his job, too, and he's trying to do his best to make sure these kids learn what they're supposed to. If anything, the only bad guy in this movie is Ted's dad, who's trying to send him to military school.
Yeah, who's kind of a cartoon villain. Also, ACAB. Because he's a cop. Can I say that?
Yeah, I guess he is a cop.
Is that okay?
I came up with a really good ACAB joke the other day, and I'm trying to remember what it was.
Was it about
It was like
Bill
some
and Ted?
play on words. No, it was just some play on words with the acronym that I was really proud of, and I was like, I should remember that because that's good. And now I can't remember what it was.
Was it ACAB more like funny joke, or is it not like, was it something different?
Right now I'm thinking all cops are British. That might be something. Anyway. I'll let you know if I think of it later.
Okay, great. I was going to talk about, I love how quickly this movie establishes things and, like, just gets going. Like, literally, like, that whole opening credit scene is so, like, weird and, like, surreal and, like, futuristic with, like, the 80s rock music playing. You're like, oh, what's happening? Right. And then Rufus is just like, all right, it's the future, it's tight as shit, but two dudes made it, and if they get separated, it's not gonna be tight as shit, so we're gonna go make sure it is tight as shit. And you're like, all right, let's go, we got it.
And I think that's important. I remember around the time that Futurama got canceled, there was a think piece that was going around where somebody was like, the last time, there was this think piece going around that was basically saying that, like, Futurama is, like, the last bastion of optimistic sci-fi.
Yeah.
Like, especially right now, I mean, kind of always, but especially right now, we're obsessed with sci-fi that is like a cautionary tale or like a dystopian future or like something horrible.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily stuff like Star Wars where it's just like, oh, what if we were in space and something happened?
Yeah,
but like anything that's like specifically about technology and like about the future is always about how technology makes things worse.
Yeah.
Right. I feel like the thing about Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure is that not only is it just a very optimistic and good-natured movie in general, but it's specifically like one of the few movies I've seen where it's like, hey, I'm from the future. Future's pretty sick. And you're like, nice.
I like it there. I want it to exist the way that it is.
Yeah, feels good to be there. And like when they go back in time, they just are constantly like making friends with everybody like immediately. Yeah. Like there's absolutely no conflict between Bill and Ted and the historical figures they're gathering.
They're all totally
They're just like instantly bros.
Yeah. Well, and it's like I think the weirdest I love the way that this movie handles its historical characters because it does a good job. This is a very similar what if to The American Pickle, where it seems like it's kind of the same exact idea. Like, what if you took someone from this time period and showed them something today, and how would they react? And they're very similar in that way, because American Pickle is like, if you showed somebody stuff from the present, they would probably think it's pretty cool. Like, they may not understand all of it, but they think it's pretty cool.
Right,
and then this movie seems to say, I think they would get it a lot more quickly than we give them credit for. Like...
Right.
If you take Napoleon and put him in a water park, he's gonna figure it out pretty quickly. Like, and he's gonna have a good time.
He's gonna be like, this rules.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the cool thing, is that like this is like this weird time travel thing, but it's just like, hey, people from the past were pretty cool, and if they came to the present, they'd probably think the present is pretty cool too.
Yeah.
And by the way, I've seen the future. Future's pretty cool.
Too.
Like, yeah,
as far as the
cool.
one thing that kind of ruins all of that is the fact that they include Genghis Khan.
Right. And I mean, look, you can say that about a lot of the people they pick up, right?
Yeah.
Billy the Kid, pretty problematic. Probably killed a whole lot of people. And I mean, we don't have documentation of this, but it was the Old West. Old West, he was probably a rapist. Like, that's just the way the world was, right? Whatever.
But we have specific evidence against Genghis Khan about how many people he raped and killed across China.
And that's the thing, is like, but that's kind of what I like about this movie, is that it's sort of like conscientiously not engaging with the reality of these guys.
Yeah,
right?
I guess
it's
that's
like,
fair, yeah.
Sigmund Freud, messed up guy. Beethoven, fucking pedophile rapist. Genghis Khan killed 10% of the world's population.
Yeah.
Like, this movie doesn't give a fuck. It's fine. Like, they're just whatever.
Yeah.
You know? And there's something I weirdly kind of like about that vibe. Just, like, engaging with them as, like, this weird abstract idea. While simultaneously, like, looking at them as if they were real, just, like, dudes.
Yeah. I think
I don't know. There's something just fun about the way that comes together.
Yeah, I think the strangest characterization when it comes to the figures that I bring from the past. First of all, I freaking adore the, like, friendship between Billy the Kid and Socrates. I think that's so much fun, and they do it so well.
It's so weird.
Like, that first scene, because they're just, like, well, Bill and Ted are, like, looking at the princesses, and in the background, they're just, like, playing catch, and, like, Socrates, like, stop throwing things at me, but then he, like, figures it out, and they start, like, playing ball. Like, it's so good.
It's so funny.
Yeah.
And, like, everyone's so nice to each other in this movie. And, like, it's just a good, fun time.
It is. Well, and I was about to say, I think the weirdest characterization is Napoleon. Not because, like, he's, like, not because of the way they, like, portray, like, the problematicness of, like, his reality. Not that. The way that they choose to portray him in this reality, where he's like a serious dude, but they kind of want to play him off as a joke, but they still want to, like, make him a person still.
Right.
So, like, the whole time he's, like, a dick, and he's weirded out, and he's, like, kind of, like, I'm Napoleon, fuck all of you. Until he gets to the water park, and then he's, like, helping children, like, go down the slide. Like, it's such a weird 180.
Then it clicks, and he gets it. He's like,
exactly.
Oh, I know what's going on here.
Yeah.
Like, this part I understand.
Bowling? Fuck that. Water slide? Yeah.
And I think
your Keanu podcast said this about Bill and Ted, but I absolutely love it. Oh my god, I said that, and then the thing that I was going to quote literally just, like, shot straight out of my head.
To be clear, she's talking about Can't Get Enough of Keanu, which is the Keanu Reeves fan cast from Patrick H. Willems that I very much like, and Adeline listened to the Bill and Ted episode of.
Oh god, I was going to quote him, and now I totally forgot what I was going to quote. They'll come back to me. Keep talking. Keep having the conversation. Okay. It'll come back.
But I think it's interesting looking at this versus, like, Austin Powers.
Yeah.
Because Austin Powers is weirdly sort of cynical, but in a really pointless, empty kind of way.
Yeah.
Where it's just, like, it's very, like, not even, like, we live in a society, it's, like, in this economy, it, like, literally means nothing.
Yeah, it's like you can say that at any time, and people will be like, oh, yeah.
But I feel like Bill and Ted is, like, the exact opposite. Bill and Ted is, like, not really engaging with a lot of realities, it's just sort of being, like, stuff's cool. And you're like, yeah. It's like, we live in a society.
Yeah, we live.
And you're like, hell yeah.
You're like, yeah, society.
I like living in a society.
I like society. I do. I fucking love when they're like, first of all, Socrates and Billy the Kid start flirting with girls at the mall, but then Sigmund Freud just walks in between them eating a corn dog.
A corn dog. It's a really good little bit.
Funniest thing on the planet. Yeah.
Okay, I have something I want to say about Napoleon as a historical figure.
Yes.
I've seen it a handful of times said that Napoleon wasn't actually short. He was, like, totally regular height.
Yeah, he was like
and for some
5'10"
reason
or something.
Yeah. I mean, I think in the 1700s, 5'10" would have been, like, freakishly
a monster,
tall,
but you know, like, for the time period, he was a regular human.
Yeah.
Height. Yeah.
Regardless, he was not, like, a tiny man.
Yeah.
And for some reason, I can't remember why exactly it was, if it was, like, a wartime propaganda thing that some other country did, or,
somebody
like,
did it.
If it was just this weird telephone game thing, or it became a weird myth.
Yeah.
But it's, like, imagine if you, like, went to the future, and you heard someone, like, just talking, and they were just like, yeah, he's got, like, a real Jackson McMurray complex. And you're like, oh, what does that mean? And everyone's like, oh, a Jackson McMurray complex is when someone has a super tiny dick, so they get really into film criticism. And you're like, what? Like,
okay.
Yeah,
someone really was like a Napoleon complex is when someone is short, so they're a dick about it. And it's like, oh, okay. So, like,
right.
Napoleon.
It's like, and he wasn't even...
And he wasn't even short. He was just a dick. Yeah. That's it. There was no reason.
Yeah. It's just like, I don't know, I wish that were part of it. I mean, I guess, I don't know, this movie does portray Napoleon as being super tiny, but like...
He's short. He's not a tiny person, though. Like...
Yeah. Anyway, I just think that's so funny. Like, imagine, like, going to the future and, like, the only thing people know about you is something that's literally not even true.
Yeah. They're like, what do you know about Napoleon? He was short. And just being like, he wasn't, though. But the problem is
what do you know?
That if he time traveled to now, he would be short because we're all taller. So
I guess that's true.
Win.
Humans have evolved to be much taller, so we would think he was short. That's a good point.
I freaking love like fashion magazines from like the 40s where they're like they would have the graph of like women from the past, women now, and then they have like the like question mark of like how tall like women are going to be in the future. And it's always like, they're all going to be 6'5" Amazons. And it's like, what the 40s thinks the future's going to be like every single time.
I was going to say, and it's funny that they say, like, Amazons, like, as if they're going to, like, tower over anybody, as if all of humanity isn't going to grow at the same rate. Okay, so if the women are all 6 foot,
then the men are probably going to be, like, a little bit more than that, just statistically.
Right.
No, I like to think that they're implying that only women are getting taller, and men are staying the same.
Right, yeah.
That's the feminism that I want, where only women are getting taller.
Right. And I think, one of the things I think about in this movie is how weirdly good George Carlin is in this, despite the fact that this movie seems to be fundamentally opposed to everything that George Carlin stood for as a performer.
Yeah.
Because George Carlin is like the most grouchy, cynical bastard in the world. And I've never been a George Carlin guy. Every time I've watched his stand-up, he's always just like, the fucking schools are brainwashing our kids to be consumers. Yeah. And you're like, I don't know, this whole thing feels very We Live in a Society to me.
Yeah, it is.
And people act like he was like so wise. Just like, he's just saying like, I don't like the man. And you're like,
and it's like, okay, with all of the, cool. like, We Live in a Society stuff, it's like, they genuinely do have, like, an actual point that, like, does have some truth to it. But, like, so fucking what? Like, unhelpful. They're like, it's like, you're not immune to propaganda. And it's like, I know, and they're like, there's no and, I'm just letting you know. And it's like, okay, well, that's cool.
But yeah, anyway, but, like,
it's just like, we live in a society, and I'm like, yeah.
George Carlin's whole thing as a performer is him just being angry at the world and how horrible everything is, and like calling out everybody and doing comedy about how absurd the bullshit is that we all wade through every goddamn day.
Yeah.
And I don't know, in the 80s, if you're angry, you hear that and you're like, hell yeah. But, like, first of all, it just seems really toothless now.
Yeah.
And second of all, is just, like...
I mean, to be fair...
kind of nothing.
And when looking at the 80s, that is the height of, like, consumerism and, like, Wolf of Wall Street, like, bullshit, Reaganism. Right. So I feel like it is...
Right.
To be like, hey, consumerism is bad, and the technology is just making you buy shit to make you fat and slower. It's, like, a little bit...
Yeah.
Has more of a
It's very much that vibe.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it has...
It's like the second half of WALL-E, if it was a comedian.
Exactly. Like, you have a point, and it makes more sense for the 80s, but, like, looking back on it, we're all just kind of like, yeah, we get it. Like, yeah, consumerism is bad, we know, but, like, also the economy, so I don't know what...
Right.
I guess I won't buy things.
But what I'm getting at is that in this movie, George Carlin functions as this, like, avatar of how sick the future is.
Yeah.
Right? Like, he embodies how cool the world can be.
Yeah.
Which is, like, just weird. And it's cool that he's so good at it, you know? And I guess I like that he liked the script enough to participate in this, you know?
Yeah.
It's sort of a different attitude than George Carlin usually has, and, like, I respect that, you know?
Yeah, totally. I keep starting sentences and then completely forgetting what I was talking about. Yeah. But let me look at my notes. Maybe I'll remember what the fuck I was talking about.
Well, I also think it's interesting that this movie doesn't really have, besides George Carlin, it doesn't really have, like, a big above-the-title movie star to bank on.
I mean, which
is just a weird move.
Is this Keanu's first movie, or is this, like, his second or third?
No, I mean, he's been around for a few years, and, like, you know, some people might know who he is, but he's definitely not, like,
he's not, like, a heartthrob yet.
Yeah, if anything, this is the movie that kind of makes him a household name.
Yeah.
Except, I would argue that Keanu probably wasn't even really a household name until, like, Speed.
This year.
This year?
This year, I was making a joke. Because he's very popular now. But, yeah, Keanu is one of those people who's just been around forever. Like, I feel like his, like, growth of, like, fame has been, like, exponential just because he's been on the scene for so long. It's like, it's just slowly always just, like...
Keanu has had more career revitalizations than anybody in history. Like,
and to be fair, he's had some rough moments in life, but...
Yeah, I was gonna say, us and our friends sat down and watched a TV documentary about Keanu Reeves one time, and we, like, put it on kind of as a joke, and then we were like, oh shit,
oh no, it's sad,
this is interesting as fuck. Yeah. So, like, Keanu Reeves starts out as, like, this young teen heartthrob in the 80s, who plays, like, these airheaded teenagers, like, in Bill and Ted, or, like, in Parenthood, or he's in a couple of, like, really serious dramas about teenagers committing suicide or whatever. He's in a couple of those, and he's usually, like, the comic relief one, as much as there is one of those.
Yeah.
And then he gets Point Break, and he starts this, like, second act of his career, where he's like, I'm a cheesy action guy now.
Yeah.
Like, I can do Speed, I can do Johnny Mnemonic, I can do Point Break, I can do, like, big, ridiculous action stuff.
Yeah.
And then, you know, people start to, and I should say, he starts to do that around the time people really get sick of him being a young teen heartthrob, right? Like, he does Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula and sucks in it, by all accounts.
Yeah.
Like, even he himself, like, it's an infamous performance.
Yeah.
And that's when he has the realization, like, I gotta do something else.
Yeah.
So he starts doing action movies. And he gets awesome at that until he wears out his welcome doing that. And then he pivots a little bit into, I mean, it's not a huge pivot, but he pivots into The Matrix. And that suddenly starts this, like, third act of his career, where he's doing these, like, really serious, sort of heightened action movies.
Yeah.
Which is, like, not totally different, but still pretty different. And then he gets, like, totally wears out his welcome on that, like, 10 years later. And people are like, Keanu's in a movie? Is this like a weird straight to Redbox exclusive?
No, it's Cyberpunk 20 whatever.
Well, and then so when people get sick of him, then he gets John Wick. He's had 4 discrete, like, acts to his career, and he's only, like, 50. Like, who is to say what Keanu Reeves' career is going to look like 20 years from now? You know?
Starfish. What movie is that?
There's Knock Knock. Knock Knock.
Can't get enough of Keanu do Knock Knock.
No, they haven't gotten there yet. They stopped making podcasts when the pandemic started because they always recorded together, and I'm mad about it. Yeah. Because they haven't been podcasting for like 6 months now.
Yeah.
They got as far as, I think The Matrix was their last episode. And I can't help but hope that they're going to start again someday, but I don't know if they will. They might just be done now. I don't know. Talking about somebody else's podcast on our podcast. Can't Get Enough of Keanu is a really good podcast.
It's a good podcast. I really like it. But I don't even know if I want you to describe the plot of Knock Knock, because it's so weirdly off-brand for who I think Keanu Reeves is, like, as a person. Like, it's such a weird film.
it's an Eli Roth movie about how actually rape culture is not a thing because women really do have the most power because they could just say whatever they want. A woman could just say that they raped you and your life would be over. And
because
it's a really good movie.
Works.
And it's a really good movie, but like genuinely, Keanu Reeves is so he's in like full on like Nicolas Cage mode in that movie.
Yeah, he is. It's
where he's just like yelling and screaming. It's so good. And
it's
there's
like
this
Uncut
moment
Gems
where
before Uncut Gems, where it's just him like screaming random words over himself.
Yeah, no, but like there's this scene. Our friend Ethan, past or future guest Ethan, and I watched it like just by ourselves one night because we were like, this looks hilarious. And we were like, wow. Yeah, and we were like, wow, deeply sexist movie. Pretty disturbing if you think about it for more than a second. But there's this moment right at the end where the two women, one of them is Ana de Armas, fucking Knives Out lead Ana de Armas, and they like post this video of him having sex with them to social media being like, he raped us. And they fucking bury him in his backyard. And they put the phone in front of him with just his head sticking up out of the dirt. And he's like, he's like struggling around and he like gets a hand free. And he goes to reach for the delete button on the phone with just like his wrist and forearm up out of the dirt. And then he's reaching for the delete, but then he accidentally hits the publish button and his phone falls over out of his reach and he's like, no! And then the credits roll and it's fucking Where Is My Mind by the Pixies.
Oh my god. It's like the end of Star Wars and Darth Vader's.
So fucking good.
But is it the part where he's yelling starfish? What's that part?
Yeah, because, okay, so, I mean, look, not to do more knock knock talk.
Because it's a bad movie.
This is our podcast. It's a bad movie. It's this, okay, this is Talking the Knock. Talk, our new Knock Knock fan cast. So here's the plot. Keanu Reeves is a loving husband and father.
Also a DJ.
He is, and I'm not, no, wait, and I'm not joking, an architect / DJ. And so his family goes away on vacation, but he has to stay home to work. Oh, well.
Because he's doing so much archaeology in his house, I guess.
And then these two beautiful women show up at his door. And they're like, oh, our car broke down and our clothes are all wet. And they like physically like pressure him into having a three-way. They like rape him, basically.
What's that song from Hamilton that's like, show me how to say no to this? Like that starts playing. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, cool.
I haven't seen Hamilton. But, so that's messed up. And then it turns out that these two beautiful women, their whole thing is that they just go around to random men as if to just prove that they will cheat on their wives with given no, how horrible men are for just whatever reason. So they just find married men and rape them and be like, oh, they cheated on their spouses, so they deserve
not
this.
Not a cool film in any way. I kind of
not
regret
a
bringing
cool
it
film,
up
but
at all
anyway,
because it sucks. And where
there's
Dylan's
this
head
point.
is great,
No, okay,
and it
but
sucks.
Here's what I'm getting to.
I just wanted to make the joke about him yelling starfish. That's all I wanted.
And then there's two moments that are very important. One, basically, the rest of the movie is just them like torturing him for no reason.
Yeah, it's very sexist.
But there's this one point where he's all tied up. And they've got, like, big headphones on his ears. And they, like, put on one of his records. And they're like, oh, better say the right answers to our weird quiz or whatever. And he, like, gets a question wrong. So they, like, drop the needle. And it's, like, like, loud music. And you just get this great shot of Keanu, like, all tied up in a chair with these big headphones on. Being like, no, my ears, stop. God, no, my ears. And then, slightly later, there's a great moment where they're like, you cheated on your wife, you're so horrible. And he's like, it was free pizza! It was free pizza! And you're talking about all this, and you go, oh, blah, 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 and husbands, starfish, and, like, That's
all I wanted to bring up.
I implore you to look up that scene because it's chef's kiss beautiful.
Do not watch the film.
Anyway.
Look up that scene on YouTube.
Maybe you can watch the film. Honestly, pretty funny a lot of the time, frankly.
It's not a good movie.
No, of course not. Anyway. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. What was I talking about specifically?
I don't even know. We were talking about Keanu Reeves having so many revitalizations in his career.
Yeah. Having this, like, multi-tiered career.
Yeah.
Which is something that, like, no other actor has ever had like that before.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of actors can have, like, sort of a second act once they turn, like, 50 or something.
Yeah.
Where they, like, transition from doing one kind of role to, like, being more known for another kind of role.
Or, like, a more, like, adult kind
I think
of
of
role.
like... Yeah, like, I think of, like, Jeff Bridges... How he was just, like, a young action guy in the 80s.
And then he was the dad in Tron. Solid.
Yeah, and... Well, okay, that's not true.
I mean, it's probably not, but that's just the funniest role that I can think of. You're like, Jeff Bridges? I'm like, the dad from Tron.
Tron. Well, no, he's the lead in the original Tron.
Yeah, but he's the dad in Tron Legacy. Yeah, that shows
but then he just becomes this old guy actor who can do, like, mouthful of marbles, like, oh, I'm Jeff Bridges, and oh, I'm just a charming old man.
Yeah.
And it's like, those are two, like, very discrete segments of his career, but, like, I can't think of anybody else who has 4 of those.
Yeah, exactly.
Adeline, what's your favorite funny thing that Bill and Ted call the historical figures?
I mean, I'm just gonna put my friend on blast, because one time we were all just sitting around, and me and my friend Katie both took not psychology, philosophy class. So we were just, like, talking about philosophy, and then my friend Mason, he just flat out says Socrates, and it was the funniest thing on the planet, because, like, I just love Socrates' character in this whole movie, where he's like, because... First of all, there's a bunch of jokes about, like, him, like, hitting on young girls, and that makes sense when you think of, like, the student-teacher relationship in ancient Greece. That makes sense, but that's a whole other thing, which is why Plato is Platonic, because he was the first guy to be like, hey, what if we don't have sex with our students? Or I was like, okay, whatever you say, Plato. But anyway.
Okay, if that's what you want, I guess.
Whatever. Gotta rain on my parade. But, like, just, like, we introduce him, and, like, of course, he's, like, people from the future, so he's, like, interested in them, and they, like, kind of understand what he's talking about because they're from the future, so he's like, yeah, I like these guys. But then the rest of the time, he's just, like, a little bit clueless, and it's so much fun. Because I think he's, like, the person from farthest back in history, so every place that we go to is the future for him. And just the way that he handles that is so funny, because he's, like, an older guy, so he's just kind of, like, quietly, like, trying to walk and run behind everybody else with his robe, and it's really good. I love Socrates in this movie.
Yeah. I would argue, we got somebody in the chat asking if the movie is out today. We're talking about the original Bill and Ted. The new Bill and Ted is coming out 1 week from today, but we're talking about the original one.
Yeah.
Also, Cade says Daniel Radcliffe has had a few. I don't think Daniel Radcliffe has had 2 eras. And he's still pretty young, so the door's open for him to have a third or fourth, if that... Who knows? But, like, I would argue that, like, Harry Potter and post-Harry Potter are 2 pretty self-contained arcs for him right now.
What the fuck is going on with that TV show that he's in, where first they were, like, Angels in Heaven, but now it's a totally different show, but it's got the same name and the same cast? Because I guess... Yeah,
it's like a weird spin-off of something else. I saw that briefly, but I don't think I ever fully engaged with it.
It was called Miracle Workers, which was the one where they were like heaven. Dad watched it and said he didn't like it, so that's my only perspective on the whole show.
Okay, fair enough.
But he just said it wasn't very funny and he didn't like it very much, but it's like... It's one of those things where it's like, hey, God's an idiot, isn't that funny? And it's like, you gotta do more than just that, But it's like, they're angels in heaven... And God's like, okay, you gotta answer one prayer or I'm gonna blow up the planet. So they're like, all right, we'll answer this one prayer for this guy who's like, I want to fall in love, or I want this one girl to love me, or something like that. They do that, and that's the plot of the show. And apparently it's not very good. But so I never heard anything about that show, which seems to tell me that nobody thought it was really that good. So what they did is that they decided to make Gallivant, but without any music. With the same cast and with the same
Wait, that's what
name.
this is?
No, I'm making fun of them because it's the exact same thing as Gallivant.
Oh.
But it's a medieval show with the same cast. Maybe it's implied that it's like reincarnations or something, but that doesn't make any fucking sense.
Right. Or like an American Horror Story thing where they've just got a cast that they...
Yeah, it's not American... It's not...
I'm done talking about it.
It's not high art, though. It's like a sitcom show that nobody liked, so they're doing that. Anyway... Daniel Radcliffe is in it, and both times he plays, like, this, like, peppy, kind of, like, dopey guy, which didn't seem like the direction that he was going. I'm gonna say, like, post-Harry Potter, Daniel Radcliffe went pretty feral. I think that's fair to say. And I think that's
he's in
fine.
a lot of weird comedies. That's kind of his thing. I mean, he was, like, I'm thinking about Daniel Radcliffe's roles post... Let me look up his filmography. Give me just a second here. Also, don't let me forget to talk about fucking Robert Pattinson at the end of this, too. Because that guy, I feel like, is about to enter his third wave at age, like, 30-something.
There's a cat outside.
Okay, so...
Hi, Katie. Okay.
Yeah, so he's got his Harry Potter stuff where he's just doing, like, British movies.
Harry Potter, but not...
So then his first post-Harry Potter role was The Woman in Black, which was like a horror movie. And then he's in Horns, which was like a weird genre comedy. Mm-hmm. He's in What If, which was like a romantic comedy. Mm-hmm. He was in this movie called... I guess he was in Trainwreck in like a small role, which is a comedy. Swiss Army Man is a comedy. Mm-hmm. Now You See Me is, I guess, not a comedy per se, but it's like a fun blockbuster.
Yeah. Action-y.
And... You know, I'm leaving out a couple of things that look like more like straight-ahead genres, but, like, weird comedies is, like, his thing. Guns Akimbo is the most recent one. And now he's the boyfriend on Kimmy Schmidt, also.
Oh, that's right.
He's in just, like, a quirky...
Yeah.
It's like he's an offbeat comedy guy now. Which, you know what? Swiss Army Man...
You love
Swiss Army Man's the best fucking movie ever. Yeah. Daniel Radcliffe in Swiss Army Man is the fucking performance of the decade for me. He's so good in that. But Robert Pattinson, not to like talk too much, because we've talked... Is this maybe the least we've talked about a movie?
Oh, no. Remember when we talked about A Bug's Life, but we just talked about Alien the entire time? We never talked about A Bug's Life in that episode.
Okay. But Robert Pattinson started off as like his like young teen blockbuster guy with like Harry Potter and Twilight. And then he disappeared for a while.
Yeah.
And then he just started... He's in his, like, current phase where he's doing, like, weird, small dramas from, like, interesting directors where he's doing, like, The Lighthouse and Good Time. Mm-hmm. And what's the movie that's coming out on Netflix this month? Devil All the Time, where he plays, like, a weird preacher. Mm-hmm. There was something else I just watched him in, too. But anyway, he's, like, doing these, like, small movies that are, like, very serious and really, like, interesting and weird, you know? And now he's got fucking Tenet and Batman coming up. And I feel like that is, like, almost undeniably going to kick off, like, a third wave for him.
Oh,
where
yeah.
he's like,
he's gonna be
now I'm, like, a big...
Now.
I'm gonna be, like, the next Tom Cruise. Yeah.
He is Tom Cruise.
And he's like, I don't know, he's probably like 30-something. Like,
early 30s,
he is like so young to be in a third phase of his career. Yeah. He's maybe gonna beat out Keanu for most phases
if
in least amount of time.
Going in this direction.
Yeah. One of the things I love about this movie is that they don't have like big name actors. Bill and Ted, I should say. Yeah. Because it's been a while since we talked about
Bill and Ted.
I like that the historical figures are not ever like recognizable actors. there's something authentic to the fact that because you've never seen this actor before and you don't recognize them, it's so much easier for you to just be like, yeah, it's Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, yeah, it's Billy the Kid.
They've really found an actor that looked like Abraham Lincoln, though.
Yeah, that guy's good. But I think that, like, you know, if this movie were made today, those would all be, like, stunt casting things.
Oh, yeah.
There would be, like, some sort of meta joke about who's playing each of these historical figures. And not that that couldn't be funny or interesting.
Zendaya would be Michi. We all get it.
Yeah. But I think it's really interesting that it's like, you know, you almost think, like, in the 80s, you'd be like, oh, Mel Gibson is going to play Billy the Kid, or like Max von Sydow is going to play Socrates. Like, that's where they would put their big names, you know? But they just decided to hire, like, some anonymous people.
Yeah.
And, like, I think it works really well on some level because it, like, lets you fully believe that they are those people in a weird kind of way.
I freaking... Rewatching this movie, I realized I had, like, such, like... a crush on the girl who plays Joan of Arc. I don't know, something about like when she's like wearing like she's got like that like short cut off hair when she's wearing like the red shirt that's got like the long sleeves and the cross on it. I don't know, I just thought she was adorable.
Right.
But like totally like just the way that they did that casting, it's just like I'm not like today that would be like Emma Watson, and I would be like, because she's like, oh, she's Belle, she's Hermione, oh, no, she's Joan of Arc, because white woman feminism. But anyway, but, like, just the fact that it's just some random actress, it's like, oh, that's Joan of Arc, that's so fun. And, like, I feel like if you had big names in it, the character would fully disappear, and it would just be the actor. Like, the idea of Joan of Arc getting on stage and taking over like an aerobics class is hilarious, but I feel like that joke kind of wouldn't land nearly as well if it was like some actor that you knew, because then it'd be like, oh, it's an actor doing a silly thing, you know, like it would just totally ruin the like reality kind of the movie, you know. I've got terrible news for you. I just got the 20% battery notification on my phone, so I might lose camera in a second.
Okay. We're pushing an hour already.
This episode,
is really
honestly, the fact that we even recorded an episode today is a miracle. So I don't. It's fine.
But I think it's really interesting. Like, also that, you know, I think it would be a perfectly valid stylistic decision to just be like, oh, and all the historical figures speak English, and we have some funny dialogue. Like, if you did that, no one would blame you, right? But, like, there's something between the fact that they are unknown actors that you can just fully believe are historical figures, and the fact that they all speak the language they would have spoken. Yeah. Like, there's something so weirdly, like, what's the word? Like, very similar about it. You, like, it weirdly feels, like, really realistic. I don't know, it's just funny. Which is what makes it all that much funnier when they, like, fucking destroy a sporting goods store or whatever.
Or when Bill and Ted show up and they're like, what's up, dudes? Here's a... Here's pudding in a can, which is only a thing that exists in the 80s, thank God. Jesus. Right.
Also, if I just want to, like, say a couple of jokes that I thought were really funny.
Yeah.
There's this moment... I love the moment where they get to ancient Greece and they're like, oh, I know, let's get Socrates. Look him up in the book, he's under Socrates. Yeah. Like, they know who Socrates is, but they don't make the connection that it's, like, not spelled that way.
Yeah.
That's so funny to me. There's also that moment where they, like, finally get home and they, like, all get out of the phone booth in front of Bill's mom. Yeah. And there's that moment where they're, like, making up names, and they're like, this is Socrates Johnson, which I think is a 10 out of 10
And I love
joke.
when they just give up, and they're like, and that's Abraham Lincoln. I think... And
I like...
this is kind of a sidetrack, but, like, I think the way that Missy is characterized is really weird, because, like, it's an 80s joke of, like, she's a hot woman. And so they're all making jokes about how she's hot, and everybody's flirting with her, and there's, like, the jokes that she, like, had sex with teachers when she was at school and stuff like that. But, like, at the same time, she's, like, trying really hard to be a supportive mom, and I really appreciate that.
Nice.
Yeah, she's really nice. Yeah. Like, she's always giving Bill and Ted rides everywhere when they pull up with, like, 30 people. She's like, yeah, I'll give you a ride. Yeah, I'll help you break into the police station. And she, like...
She shows up to their presentation.
Exactly. It's like, she kind of does fall into a lot of, like, harmful tropes, but, like, she's, like, really trying to be a good mom, and I really respect her for it.
And I just love the joke where Ted is just like, your mom's really hot. Remember when I asked her to prom?
Remember when she was a senior and we were freshmen? I love that scene so much.
Really
when
funny.
They're, like, leaving the house. And Bill says something like that. I think that's what he says. He's like, remember when we were freshmen and she was a senior? And, like, Bill and, like, Ted just, like, fully turns around. He's like, shut up, Bill! And then they just, like, stare at each other for a second, and then Ted goes, like, it's just, you just see, like, that, like, it's so good.
And I was texting you earlier about how much I love the way Keanu Reeves moves in this movie. Like, he does this thing where, like, well, first of all, like, he's always, like, walking around with, like, his arms kind of in front of him. I'm doing some kind of physical stuff. Yeah. But he also, he does this thing that's so funny where, like, whenever he, like, says something, he, like, raises his whole arm up for emphasis, which is, like, such a weird physical choice. Yeah. That, like, would seemingly not play in any other movie. Yeah.
Well,
it
just...
Him just, like, randomly raising his arm fully above his head.
Yeah.
Like...
Well, it works for the character of, like, this dorky high school kid. He's like, yeah, totally. For him to just, like, emote in this really weird way, like, totally works. Yeah. I love...
They also talk about...
Wait, I want to talk about Ted's crop top. Can we talk about Ted's crop top? I love the fact that he's wearing a crop top. It's a good crop top. Honestly, both of their looks, hundy. Like, one hundy. Right, like, super good.
Pretty good.
The
pretty
vest,
good looks.
With the orange jacket? Hell yeah. Jacket.
I also really like that, like, I like that it's set in San Dimas, California, like, the shitty, boring part of Southern California, where it's, like, weirdly all the bad parts of Southern California without all the cool stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
And I like that they, like, talk about Disneyland a lot. Yeah, like, they go to the Old West, and they're like, this is just, like, Frontierland.
Yeah, but I love that, because, like, this is just my thought. He's like, this is just, like, Frontierland. He's like, yeah, but you could get shot here. And all I can think about is, like, you could get shot at Disneyland. Nothing's stopping you from getting shot at Disneyland.
Especially in the 80s.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's before they had, like, the security.
Metal detectors.
Yeah, exactly. The 80s.
Although, so, I want to ask that when they take Napoleon to that pervert ice cream store, where he eats the big ice cream and all the employees come over and are like, ooh, you're the little piggy, aren't you? Oh, you're a fat little pig. Yeah. Ooh. And you're like, why is this a thing? Why did they take him to this pervert ice cream stand?
Why is this a scene in the movie? Why did children take him to this ice cream store?
and there is a moment, the guy who plays Napoleon plays it so perfectly, where they, like, are kind of poking at him, and he, like, puts his arms up, and they, like, give him a little high five, and, like, the way he responds to that little high five is so funny. It's, like, feels so perfect and genuine in that moment.
But see, what I would have done if I was the director, I just wouldn't tell him what we're doing in that scene, and just see what he does.
Right.
When these three perverts come up.
Yeah. And
is that unethical? Maybe. Is it funny?
Maybe.
Yes.
No. You're an actor.
Right, you signed a contract. You know.
I just remember when I was a kid, I was very scared of things that were inappropriate and, like, things I wasn't supposed to be seeing. Yeah. Not for any particular reason, it just really freaked me out when there was, like, language or something. Yeah. And I liked this movie a lot, but the scene where Napoleon goes bowling and he sucks at it, and then he, like, lays down and, like, pounds his fist, and the subtitles are just like, shit, 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 shit. Yeah. Like, really freaked me out as a kid. Like, for whatever reason, I was always like, that's not an appropriate... that's a bad word and that's an inappropriate part and I shouldn't be watching this. And like I just remember like the back of my neck would get all hot and I would like be kind of uncomfortable and like
I remember so vividly that whenever we would watch Monty Python Quest for the Holy Grail, there's like that one scene where, I think we've talked about this before on the podcast, but that one scene where they like go into the castle, that night guy goes to the castle, or so like the handmaidens who are like, oh my god,
right.
And like they make all these really dumb jokes. It's like, oh, you have to spank all of us. Like it's a super like dumb joke, but we would always skip over that when I was a little kid. And then I watched it as an adult and didn't skip that scene. I was like, it's fine. Like, they're not... There's not a one bad word. No one mentions sex. It's just, like, stupid little things like that.
I thought at the end... I thought the joke was that, like... If I... See, then the weird thing is I don't remember that scene as well, because we always skipped over it. Yeah, because we skipped over it. But
no, the joke is, like...
I thought the joke was that, like, at the beginning, they're, like, being very coy and, like... oh, you must have to give us spankings or whatever. Yeah. And then by the end of the scene, they're like, and now we're going to give you oral sex. Like, I thought that was the joke, is that they just get more and more
I also don't remember
blunt about it.
I think the joke is that he's, like, the devout, like, innocent knight. He's, like, the youngest one, so he's, like...
right.
He's just, like, that, like, really, like... knightly, you know, like he's that proper kind of. So when he gets to this place that's like full of women and they're like, oh, you have to spank us, or like, you can sleep in my bed, like that thing, and he's just like, oh, like that's what I thought the joke was.
Anybody in chat, if you remember what the joke was,
what is that joke in that one scene of Monty Python? Is it oral sex or is it just man uncomfortable?
But that's the thing, it's like these. There was plenty of, like, 80s stuff when I was in, like, 5th through 8th grade that, like, it's weird to say that I pretended to be into it, but that's not exactly what it was. More like I just convinced myself that I really liked it, even though, like, honestly, I didn't really.
Yeah.
No, it's not even that. It's, like Monty Python and the Quest for the Holy Grail. Mm-hmm. I super didn't get as a kid.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that humor is so weird and so intelligent
British,
and so, like... Yeah, and, like, it was one of those things where it was, like, my parents loved it, and I had a lot of friends whose parents had shown them it, and they were excited about it, and I was like, yeah, like, I'm gonna fit in, and I want my parents to think I'm cool, so... Like, I'm gonna, like, not like, consciously, but I was like, I'm gonna be really into Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Even though... I didn't get it. Like, I didn't think it was that funny, and I never quite really liked it that much until I watched it again as a grown-up, and I was like, this is hilarious. But, like, clearly I didn't, like, totally get it as a kid. But what I'm getting to, and that was the same thing with a lot of music, too, like, I listened to Van Halen a lot when I was in middle school, even though I don't think I ever really liked Van Halen very much. I pretended to be into Star Trek for a really long time because I had some friends who really liked Star Trek, and I never really liked Star Trek that much. Anyway,
I still don't like Star Trek that much. I've tried to get into Star Trek, and I'm like, it's optimistic, but it's like...
right, yeah, like we were saying,
it's
optimistic
sci-fi, but it's not fun.
But my point about Bill and Ted is that, like, I didn't feel that way about Bill and Ted. Like, it was one of those things that, like, I could have easily been like, oh yeah, I love this, it's my favorite, but, like, secretly deep down somewhere in some part of myself, I can't I can't speak to. I would, like, actually didn't really care that much about it. But, like, genuinely, like, I have always really liked Bill and Ted. It's like the one, like, 80s comedy thing that I, like, really genuinely have embraced since I was a kid. Because there is something about it that is sort of approachable.
Oh yeah,
you know, it doesn't require a high baseline of intelligence or engagement.
I mean,
or
I honestly think
to really understand.
It is the optimism that makes it so, like, welcoming. Like, honestly, like, it's just like, fuck yeah, I'll watch Bill and Ted. Like, I'll watch Bill and Ted anytime. It's because it's not. I don't know. Like, it's weirdly in. It's like, it's trying to say something, but it's not really trying to say something, they say something, you know, like,
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
like be excellent to each other, but it's like it's just these dudes doing a thing, and it's just really like nice, and they're nice people, and they want other people to be nice. Like it's just such a basic theme that like they're just able to do it really well, and so it's like you can just jump on. It's not like if it was like darker or less optimistic, it was like high school, the present, the past was so much better, and the future will be so much better, but the present is awful. Then I feel like it wouldn't be as good of a movie because you wouldn't. It would be a little bit more emotionally exhausting, you know.
Right. I think it's really funny to me that the way they frame it in the movie is Kate just said in chat it doesn't require a huge amount of moral thinking, which I think is a good way to express that. The way that they help the future, they frame it like your music saved the world, not like you became rock stars and you used your platform to spread a message and you were great philanthropists. It was your music. Literally just the music made society perfect, which I think is funny.
I love this movie so much. How literally the main moral of it was like, just like these two kids who kind of can't do anything right and are like just kind of like, they're in a weird limbo stage in their life. Like, they're at the end of their high school career. They're not great students. They have this idea for a band, but, like, their band isn't good yet. It's not going anywhere. They're this very limbo-y beginning, uncertainty, like, just kind of starting this part of their lives. And to just have someone from the future just come down and be like, hey, what you are doing now is going to make a difference, and the world is better because you are in it. That's just, like... That's so nice. Cool. That's so cool. Yeah.
It's really, it's sort of a potential thing, but it's like, not even like you have potential. It's like the rules of the universe dictate that you're going to be pretty sick. You're like, nice.
Cool. Yeah.
And like, I wrote down, I feel like Bono saw this movie and was like, I want to be that. Yeah. I'm going to be the wild stallions of the real world. You feel me? That's very much the vibe that, like, mid-period U2 gives off.
What U2's trying to be.
Yeah, exactly. But, okay, let's talk about when all the historical figures are in the mall. Because that is the great.
Best part.
I love the line at the end where they're like, in the 1100s, Genghis Khan ravaged China, and about 20 minutes ago, he ravaged Dick's Sporting Goods. Which
it's really good.
Is really, really funny.
Weirdly,
but I also really love...
My favorite thing, because like they're all like get into like chaos in the mall, and that's like a part of it. But my favorite thing is that like Beethoven just like goes to the music store, and he just like starts playing like piano and draws a crowd. Doesn't do anything wrong and still gets arrested.
Gets arrested? Yeah. I mean, I think the thinking was that they caught on that there's a whole bunch of people
that are like putting them together in a
and
group,
they're just rounding people up.
He didn't commit any crimes.
Still, this is funny.
Yeah.
Didn't commit any crimes. He just was too good at the piano.
Go to
jail. But yeah, and I love that fucking piano salesman.
Yeah.
Who's like so goddamn smug about his pianos. And like Beethoven's like looking at it and like playing a little bit and he's like, oh, hey. Get a load of this. And he like reaches over and presses the button and it's like it's
like the bossa nova button.
Whoa! Yeah, exactly. And Beethoven's like, oh, like as if that's gonna take his playing to the next fucking level. And I'm trying to decide if that's supposed to be funny or if in 1980 whatever we just actually thought that was so cool that
really honestly I don't know. That was new technology.
We talked about we talked about Socrates and Billy the Kid like hitting on those girls, which is like so funny. And the girls are like, I don't know if this is real or not.
And Billy the Kid is just like, we're from history. And he pulls up like a wanted poster, and the girls are just like, all right, whatever. Okay.
And there's like a really like genuine reaction from those girls being like, is this a bit?
Or is this a joke? Are you joking?
Yeah. But, like, I don't know, and the whole thing is just so good. Okay, but I want to talk about the time travel mechanics for a moment. Because I think, first of all, I think this model of time travel, which is the whole everything that has happened will always happen, everything's like a static solid object in time, is my favorite kind of Prisoner of Azkaban model is my favorite kind. Because, if you're doing the, like, you can change stuff model, you could argue that there's more, like, narrative tension because you don't know how things are going to shake out necessarily.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of the time, like, honestly, I think Prisoner of Azkaban really nails it in the sense that, like, it withholds... Because the key to it is that you've got to withhold a certain amount of information as you're going through it so that you don't know whether things are going to work out, but you still see things come together in a way that's really satisfying. I think it's super cool, like, knowing what the pieces are, them showing you things, giving you enough time to think, or giving you enough time to forget about them, and then having them come back, and that's, like, so fucking satisfying.
I love the heist, though, where they're just, like, remembering to do things in the future. I think that's tons of fun, where they're like, how are we gonna get in there? And it's like, okay, well, in the future, we'll come back, and we'll put a key under the mat, and they look under the mat, there's a key, and then they, like, get stuck their way. They're like, alright, in the future, we'll come back, and we'll hide a recording of you, like, shouting your dad's, and then they do that, and they do that, like, 3 more times. I love
cool,
that.
Yeah. And
it doesn't really pay off, but it's funny.
Yeah, no, it's funny, and it's, like, cool, good, like, Swiss watch storytelling.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
I mean, except for that moment where they're like, remember a trash can, and a trash can just falls out of nowhere onto his head. It's like, what was that? Like, it would work if like, the trash can fell, and it, like, panned up, and there's, like, a balcony, and, like, other Bill and Ted are, like, waving to him.
Yeah.
That would be really fucking funny. Don't quite do that. I don't know, whatever. But...
How would you do Bill and Ted?
But I think it really speaks to something, like the moment at the beginning where they're, like, setting up the rules, where they're like, that clock is always ticking. Like, you've got to come back after a certain amount of time, because that's just the way it works, or you're going to miss the presentation.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, yeah, sure. Even though that doesn't make any goddamn sense.
No,
like,
it doesn't make any sense.
They literally show up at that exact time later, and it's like, why not just not time travel anymore? Get out there and just wait through the night again. Like, obviously it doesn't make any fucking sense, but they are intentional about telling you what the stakes are, even if it doesn't completely mesh logically. You still have a clear understanding of the stakes according to the narrative. Which I'm just now realizing that this is exactly the Wreck-It Ralph thing. Which is, like, they just tell you things, and you're like, why? And they're like, doesn't matter.
I told you, though. You can't say anything because told you.
I'm just realizing that I'm being a hypocrite because I criticize Wreck-It Ralph for that, and I'm praising Bill and Ted for the same thing.
Yep.
But, like, I don't know. I think that, like, there's a place where you meet in the middle where it's like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like, it's not a good thing or a bad thing. It's just something that I appreciate that
it's just something that's happening.
I don't
We're
know.
all just gonna go with it.
I just think it's interesting to think about. Because I think a lot about fucking goddamn CinemaSins and, like, plot hole film criticism. Yeah. And how much I hate it.
Yep.
And it's like, I just always want to, like, view things through that lens, I guess. I watched the CinemaSins video, like, every once in a blue moon. I'm like, what if I'm being ridiculous? Maybe I'll flip on a CinemaSins video and see if I just, like, understand that they're being obtuse and maybe that's part of the joke, maybe I'll like it. And I flipped on the one for Scoob, which is a movie I hate more than anything else in the world. Yes. I was like, if any movie could pull off a CinemaSins, it's this one, because I'm so angry about the movie, maybe I won't be so upset.
About. Yeah.
Well, it's like, not even that. It's like, I hate this movie so much I won't be mad if they're unfair towards it. Yeah. But, like, the instant I turned it on, they were just like, in this scene, Scooby is rolling down the street on a ham, and then they eat it later? Wouldn't it be very dirty? And I was like,
Scooby-Doo's a dog, and he talks, and it's like, you're an idiot.
Like, and I was so shocked. I was, like, so ready to be like, I'm gonna choose to enjoy this one, and, like, instantly I was like,
I'm gonna make fun of a movie that I hate.
You are being so obtuse about storytelling, and you're making the world worse.
Yeah, like, it's not.
I get so angry
joke when it has a real effect on the world.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't like it one bit.
I used to enjoy CinemaSins until I saw people with, like, actual criticism, like, Because I was like, oh,
until you learned about real movie criticism.
Exactly. I was like, oh, hi, haha, like, that's so obtuse. And then I saw people actually being obtuse. And I was like, oh, no. It's not a joke anymore. It's real.
The thing that sucks you in about CinemaSins is that the way they present some things, every once in a while, they'll, like, bring up a thing that's sort of meant to be, like, a more serious one, where they're, like, questioning, like, the motivations of a character, and they're like, well, wait, if he didn't know this, then how come he's doing this? Like, that kind of thing. And you watch that, and you're like, oh, like, in The Incredibles, I guess I didn't realize that doesn't quite make sense. And you buy it, and then you go and watch The Incredibles, and you realize that is fully explained in the movie.
Oh, yeah.
And you're like, I hate this. And it's so frustrating when they, like, convince you that something's wrong that is actually absolutely not wrong at all.
That's my least favorite thing on the planet.
They just willfully left out information for the sake of, like, comedy.
No, that would happen all the time when I watch the CinemaSins. They'd be like, she just goes over there for no reason. I'm like, no, she went over there because somebody told her something earlier. Like, what are you talking about? Like, they're willfully leaving out information to make a joke, but then presenting it as a real criticism, and I hate it.
There was, hold on, I'm just looking at the chat super quick. There was somebody I was talking to who was talking about the era of, like, angry media criticism on early YouTube.
Yeah.
Where it's, like, Nostalgia Critic and CinemaSins and Angry Video Game Nerd being these people who started off with, an ironic idea where they're, like, a big, annoying character that's just angry and that's their thing, right? And it's like, cool, no problem with that.
Yeah.
But the thing about it is that obviously they wouldn't do this if they didn't care about the media they were making jokes about.
Yeah.
And once they have an audience, they start having the desire to have their actual opinions be heard about the things they're talking about. So just every once in a while, they start weaving in actual opinions into their angry video game nerd
And that's when everything falls apart.
And and then there's absolutely no line between satire and joke-telling and actual genuine attempts at film criticism, and it becomes all the same thing, and there's no delineation between fact and fiction, you know?
And I think
that is just the worst.
Well, and it's because Aaron Hansen's sequelitis is kind of, I think it's at, like, the end of that time, but it's definitely, like, early internet criticism, would you say? And, like,
early YouTube.
Yeah, early YouTube, definitely. But I still watch sequelitis videos because I think Aaron does a really good job of balancing the two, where obviously when he is upset about something, he, like, makes it, like, bigger and funnier in order to make an entertaining video. But the entire time, the joke is that he's angry. The joke is not what he's angry about. Like, all of his criticisms are legitimate criticisms, and he's also not criticizing the entire video. He's half talking about something he likes or half talking about something he doesn't like, or just...
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, like, sequelitis doesn't feel like that. I'm trying to say why, and I think it is because...
Right.
It's just genuine criticism in a funny package.
Yeah.
It's not...
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
Because Aaron Hansen in sequelitis is never, ever purposefully saying something they don't believe.
Yeah.
Right? He is literally speaking exactly what he thinks about whatever he's talking about. There's no sense of ironic detachment or, like, need to play things up because he's just stating his genuine point of view and spicing it up with humor. The thing about the other things that I'm talking about is that they're inherently based on saying things you don't necessarily believe for humor and then peppering in things you do believe because you want to say them.
And then not
which is fundamentally... which is fundamentally whack, I think. And it's why fucking... Yeah, I don't know. And it's like, I know I've talked about this on the podcast before and everybody knows, but it's like, it's... Movies aren't fucking math problems.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, you do this and you do that and it all comes together and your movie gets an 8 out of 10 score. It's like, it's all... No. Like, one of the things I like about this podcast format that we do is that we don't have to be like, here's what's good and here's what's bad. This movie gets a 4 out of 10.
Yeah.
Like, we can just like talk about it. We don't have to like pass judgment on something one way or the other. I mean, not that we never do, but like we can just like freewheel and talk about the ideas being expressed and like what they mean in reference to other things and what it means in this context and whatever. Like that's what I love about this.
Film as a whole.
And yeah, and like I hate the fucking plot hole model of film criticism because it's stupid, and I hate it.
I don't know if the idea is that if a movie has no plot holes, it'll be perfect. Because that's just
plenty of movies suck
true.
Ass that make sense.
Yeah. It's like it's
like the problem. Right, the problem with the movie. It's my take is that it is perfectly. No, my take is that it is perfectly fine to have as many fucking plot holes in your movie as you want.
Yeah.
The thing that you can criticize a movie about is how good it is at distracting you from those plot holes. Yeah. That's what I think is important. Like, I think, like, a great example is Toy Story. Why does Buzz freeze when humans come in if he doesn't know he's a toy, right?
Yeah.
That is, by the truest definition, a plot hole. That is a break in the logic of the movie, right? Mm-hmm. But I guarantee you never even thought of that until somebody pointed it out to you, you know?
Yeah, until some neckbeard was like, oh, childhood ruined.
Right. And it's like, it's true that, you know, when you think about it like that, it doesn't work. But it is, first of all, integral to the storytelling of the movie. You couldn't have it be a different way.
First of all, we have to do that.
And second of all, the movie is good at not drawing attention to the things that would make you think about that, you know?
Yeah.
And that is where the movie succeeds, is that it doesn't make you think that while you're watching it, if that makes sense. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, and that's perfect why Bill and Ted is so good. It's because they're like, even we talk about like how realistic the depictions of the people we're taking out of history are. There's still a lot of plot holes, like how the time machine doesn't work and like how they have a deadline even though they have a time machine and like stuff like that. But like,
right.
Who fucking cares? Like this, like they like so clearly give you the stakes. There's like, you gotta pass this, or Ted's gonna go to military school, so you gotta pass this test so you can save the future. Also, you only have so much time to do it because of plot hole reason. Go, but it's like, I don't care about the plot hole reason because you said so, and we were doing the thing, and the rest of the movie is so fun and enjoyable that I don't care if the deadline doesn't make sense, because when they get there right before the deadline, I'm like, oh, cool, good that we got there before the deadline, even though the deadline doesn't make any sense.
There's there's a really great video by Patrick H. Willems, who it's called. What's the title of the video? I think it's called Shut Up About Plot Holes. Or maybe Shut the Fuck Up About Plot Holes. One of the two.
Maybe there's a fuck in there.
But like his main thing, and I sort of, the way he presents it, it makes it kind of feel like it's never okay to criticize a movie for plot holes. But I think like my thing is more like, if a movie takes you out of itself because there's a gap in logic that's really obvious, like that is bad. Yeah, exactly. But anyway, because like his vibe seems to be more like, plot holes are not a problem ever, which I don't think I agree with. But anyway, the basis of the video is basically like, okay, so here are some things that are not plot holes. He's like, things happening very coincidentally, not a plot hole. Maybe bad writing, not a plot hole. Characters doing something that you wouldn't do is not a plot hole. And characters not taking the most optimal option to get out of their circumstances is not a plot hole, because not every person thinks like a robot. Yeah. And the last one was things happening that aren't explained is not a plot hole.
Like, God, it's
people talk about that like
the most, because it's like, I feel like it's like the same people are having the same conversation. It's like, oh, why do movies have to explain everything and like hold my hand through the whole thing? Like, just be creative and original. And at the same time, they're being like, you didn't explain why fucking Han Solo said that he did the thing in distance and not time. It's like, it's the same person, and they don't understand like the disconnect of you're an idiot.
Well,
I'm upset.
And like what I think about I mean, the example that Patrick H. Willems uses in the video is like Dark Knight Rises. There's this moment where, like, Bruce Wayne is, like, away from Gotham. And then, like, in the next scene, he, like, returns to Gotham, like, a short amount of time later. And there's not, like, any piece of shoe leather where they're like, oh, I commandeered a helicopter or whatever. It's just like he's there, you know, and like he's Bruce Wayne. I'm sure he figured it out, you know.
I'm sure
it's
he
not
bought
important
something.
that you know. Yeah, like it's not important that you know how he got from China to Gotham again. And people are like, that's a plot hole because like, how did he do that? And like, I think in the movie, there's probably maybe he's like in a small village or something. Maybe there's no readily apparent way that he did that, but it's like still who the fuck cares? Like it's how we moved along. I'm sure you could come up with some reason that satisfies you. It's not his job to hold your hand through every tiny specific detail of the story.
I feel like stupid. This podcast is very long, and it might just feel like that because
I feel like it's
now, but
no, it's long. We're at we're at an hour and a half. That's about normal.
Yeah, I only bring it up because
it's about normal for a longer
on
episode of the podcast.
Battery, so we will.
Okay, we're wrapping it up.
Audio
it's cool.
and visual.
But yeah, hey,
yes.
Let's start to wrap it up. I am going to. Okay, any final thoughts? Anything you want to say before we go?
Bill and Ted holds up so well, far more than it probably should. Probably far more than the people who made it ever thought that it would. Like, it's...
right.
Like, it's totally... It's wholesome, it's nice, it's funny. I feel like another thing that I like about this is that it's an 80s movie that doesn't feel like they're shoving the 80s down your throat. Like, it's very much a part of the film, but it doesn't... I don't know. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's just me, but like, I don't know, especially with all the nostalgia that exists in the world today, it doesn't feel like it's glorifying the 80s. It feels like the 80s is just a setting that just like any other time period is a setting, you know?
Right.
It's good. I like it.
So Adeline, would you like to hear a 1/2 of 1 star review of Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure? So this review comes from Letterboxd.com. This person says, I haven't even watched it, but David has seen it, so it's probably shit.
Who's David?
I don't know. Truly, it's a mystery.
Could be anyone.
Apparently somebody who has very bad taste in movies.
But David's seen it, so it's probably bad.
But David has seen it, so it probably sucks ass. Okay, my name is Jackson McMurray.
My name is Adeline McMurray.
And this is No Nerds Allowed.
And there are No Nerds Allowed. It's not even David likes it, so it's probably bad. It's David has seen it, so it's probably bad.
Yeah.
David is aware of it as a concept, so it's probably bad.